All right, so good evening, everyone. My name's Kenneth. I'm the newly arrived diploma coordinator. And so I've come in with the task of helping the school get authorized to organize the program itself and then eventually teach in the diploma program. So we do have a few administrators here this evening, and we also have some teachers here. We have Miss Valeria, who teaches music and will be teaching Ukrainian language. We have our two math teachers. We have Mr. Israel, who teaches in the languages. Mr. Carl's here. Um, Miss Monica's here from our English department. So I'm going to go through, and what I'm going to do is basically talk about what we envision for the diploma, but it starts with explaining how the diploma is going to fit into the overall high school structure that we have here. Um, so this QR code goes to what? An Instagram page. Oh, okay. All right. So I'm going to talk about our pre-university programs. And so it starts with the high school diploma, which is a 4-year program. Then the AP capstone diploma, which is something that started in 2014. So it's only been in existence for 10 years, something relatively new. And then the IB diploma. So the thing to understand is that our high school diploma is a 4-year program, where as in maybe the British system, it's only a 2-year program and preceded by the IGCSE, which is the British School Leaver Certificate. Uh, in America, the high school diplomas actually at the end of year 12, that's the school leaving certificate. Students don't get anything before year 12. So in America, they're required to do 12 years of education, whereas here in Slovenia, they only have to do 8 years of education. In Australia, it's 10 years of education. In England, it's essentially 10 years of education, and then they could go out and work if they want, or they go into a pre-U program. All right, so here, what you see is basically a 4-year program, and all of these courses in black essentially illustrate what's required as a minimum for the high school diploma, plus electives. So students have to take 4 years of English, 2 years of a second language, have to have 3 years of social sciences or social studies. They need to have 3 years of science, 3 years of math, 2 years in the arts area, and then 2 years of physical and health education. And then they add in electives so that they collect a total of what the American system calls 24 credits to qualify for an American high school diploma. So a high school, as an example, a student who took all the minimum requirements and then they filled in with some electives, that would be a simple American high school diploma. So you can see that typically, now our school right now, this is just listing 7 classes in year 9 and 10. A lot of schools might have 8 periods. So students will actually, after the first 2 years, collect 16 credits. So then they only need 8 more credits over years 11 and 12. So it's quite possible in the American system that students would, in their final year, have only 1 or 2 classes to complete their English and maybe something else. But in international schools, it's quite common that students are still taking more credits. But this would be essentially the minimum that a student would need to get a high school diploma. Moving on, okay, just to highlight the AP capstone course. This is what it would probably look like. A capstone course, the AP capstone diploma requires 2 courses that can be spread out either year 10, 11, or 11 and 12. They're called seminar and research. And then they have to take a minimum of 4 additional courses selected from the offerings that the school has. Now, I've actually put in here the credits. The seminar class is worth 6 university credits, and the research class is worth 6 university credits. And then the other classes, I've put the credit levels in there that a student could get. when they go to university. So if they complete the AP diploma along with their high school diploma, they could potentially, just this program here, a student could walk into university and already have 36 credits accumulated towards university. So that's over a year. That's basically the first year already done when they go to university, if they follow that. And you can see there's still space in the schedule. That's only based on 24 high school credits. They actually could still do more. Really depends on their readiness to take AP courses and what we're able to offer. Okay, so this again fits into our high school diploma, and it's just a sample because we quite likely would offer some of these classes starting in year 10, but it would depend on the students' readiness to take on, because the AP courses are considered university level classes. So student has to be operating at that level in order to take the class. Now the IB diploma looks like this. All the classes are 2-year classes, and they're essentially taking 7 classes over the 2 years. They're taking 6 subjects plus theory of knowledge, and then they have the additional CAS requirements, the creativity action service, which I'll get into a little bit later. And they also have an extended essay, which is a 4,000 word report, research report. Now that also exists in if I'm going to go back one, in the AP capstone diploma, the research class also has a 4,000 word research report. So it's essentially the same carryover as the IB diploma. Now, I haven't put in the credits here because it gets a little bit different, but the IB courses, because they're 2 years, they're now starting to be recognized in the US for university credit, and they have differing levels of credit because they are 2-year programs. However, the university credits, to get the IB credits in the US, normally this student will have to score at least a 5 in the course to get the credit. Okay. And some universities, the more selective universities, in order to give the credit, they'll require a higher grade, a 6 or a 7. That's the same with the AP courses. A 3 is what's recommended as a minimum to get university credit, but more selective universities will say a 3 doesn't get any credit. They would have to score 4 or 5 in that AP system in order to get university credit. Okay. So going back to the diploma, so you can see that the IB diplomas are more challenging because there's a lot more that they have to do. So they're going to be full on, and they have a lot of work outside of the actual coursework itself. They have the CAS and they have the extended essay. So here's an outline of what the diploma includes. So the IB diploma students have to take a first language. They have to take a second language. They have to have a humanities, social science course, which they call individuals and societies, is a subject group. They have to have a science. They have to have a math, and the arts. If someone does a straight diploma, they would take an art, something in the arts, maybe visual arts, dance, music, theater, but it's not absolutely required. A student could opt to not take an art, and they could double up in one of these other groups. Okay. But they have to have 6 subjects. Plus, they have to have the theory of knowledge. So they basically have to do 6 classes plus theory of knowledge, which is actually a class. And that class includes an exhibition project and then another essay. Then they also have to have the extended essay, and they have to have CAS, which CAS means creativity. They have to do something creative during the 2 years. They have to do something active over the 2 years, and they have to do service over the 2 years. Okay. So we say the 2 years, but actually it ends up being about 18 months because it's the first year plus the first semester of the second year. All right. Now, to understand this, besides the coursework, meaning the classwork that they're doing, they're in each class, they will have papers at the end. They'll have papers, exam papers at the end that they have to take. So of these 6 subjects that they take, they have to choose 3 at the higher level, which means a minimum of 250 hours of instruction. And they can take 3 classes at the standard level, which is 150 hours of instruction as minimums by the IB standards. Now, what that means at the end is that if let's say they've taken business management at the higher level, they will have 3 exam papers in April, May of their second year, and it'll be 5 hours of exam papers for the one class. Okay. So typically what happens is students will have, depending on whether they take art and the language is having oral exams, what will happen is a typical student in the IB will have between 21 to 27 sit-down paper and pencil exams across their subjects. Okay. Every subject has a research component that will be somewhere between 20 to 30% of the total grade. So in science, they're actually doing research experiments. In business or psychology, they're writing papers that are primarily theoretical. And the languages, again, they're going to have to do not only analysis of literature, they have to do analysis of normal composition, and they'll have oral tests to evaluate their spoken, and they'll have a listening test. There's a listening exam as well for all the languages. Okay. So this here, what you see here, this is our proposed schedule of classes or proposed options for classes for next year. Okay. So the intent right now, based on student interest, student skills, and students that are in year 10, we're offering English A, Russian A, Slovene A, and Ukrainian A. And then for second languages, we have English B. So a lot of the students who are taking Russian, Slovene, and Ukrainian A, they're going to be in English B. And then we have students who will be taking Spanish B. The next year after that, this will probably change. These will stay the same, but we'll probably end up adding possibly German, because we have a number of German students in grade 9. But right now, the grade 10 German students are actually wanting to take Russian and Ukrainian, Slovene, because they're not German. So they want to take their mother tongue. All right. So in the individuals and societies, the social science area, we're planning to offer business management, global politics, environmental systems and societies. Now, environmental science is actually what the IB calls an interdisciplinary subject, so it can be taught or taken and studied as both a social science, but also as a science. So that's why you see it listed here twice. So we could have students who decide they don't want to take biochem and physics, they want to take environmental science. And they may do that because of they're maybe not wanting to take on the challenge of the chemistry and the physics or the biology. Often in the science area, students might take this because their English language is not so strong. Okay. Math, we have 2 levels. And I'm going to go ahead and go to the next slide. Okay. The IB has 2 levels of math. One is called analysis and approaches, and one is called application and theory. So the titles of those kind of tell you right away there's a difference. The analysis is very, very theoretical, and it's based on a very strong background in calculus. Application, the amount of calculus is not so demanding. It's more of a pre-calculus would be probably enough, but it's very applied in its approach. The analysis is very theoretical. It's essentially pure maths, is what we call it. Okay. So there has to be a decision on the part of the students and the parents which math they're going to go to. However, there has to be an understanding that if a student wanted to take this and started in it and then found they couldn't handle it, the diploma's over. Because if they take this and they fail, they're not going to get the diploma, and they can't change from this class to this class after year one. You can't even change in the first year. So there has to be a serious consideration which class to choose. So Dr. Hassan is already starting to evaluate students and look at which students are capable at this level. Okay, so what we're going to say to parents is, and students, you have to be taking into consideration his advice very carefully, because if he suggests you take applications and you decide to take analysis instead, we're not going to say no. But if you're failing, again, the IB diploma is over because you won't be able to finish the math. Now, that said, if a student is struggling in the math and so they're not going to be able to finish the complete diploma, they can still get certificates for every other diploma class that their IB class that they're taking. So they're still gonna get the American high school diploma. They should be able to, and they'll still be able to get certificates for the classes that they successfully completed. The other thing that I'll say in terms of research that I've done in my previous school, where I had over 80 students that I could do an analysis on. Math is very much correlated to chemistry and physics. So if a student is interested in higher level chemistry or higher level physics, they need to be very strong in math if they want to score well. And that's a concern for most parents, is that you want your child to score well, because then they're going to have access to better universities. Now the world average, the span of scores in the IB is from basically 24 is passing to a 45, which is the perfect score. Okay. Now the world average is generally between 29 to 31, right in that range, not counting COVID years. So last year was 30 plus a little bit, and the previous years before COVID, the average was actually just a little bit below 30. Every year, typically there's about 100 plus or minus a few perfect scores worldwide. And that's with 70,000 students, only 100. Half of those come from Singapore. Because in Singapore has a culture of tuition centers and students staying up and studying until 11 or 12 o'clock at night every night. So that means what I'm trying to indicate here is that parents need to start expecting their kids to spend time at home, not doing homework, but actually, we say, revising, practicing their math skills, practicing their essay writing skills, reading and studying the literature books, studying the vocabulary in biology, sitting at home and studying the vocabulary and the theories in business and global politics. Because if students are not revising daily throughout the 2 years, they're going to, even if they're intelligent, they're only going to be at the average level. They're not going to score anywhere near the 40 and above that will get them in the top universities. Okay. So for example, Cambridge University, just to get your application in the door and on their table, you have to have a 42. And as I said, worldwide, only about 100 plus students score perfect at a 45. Now, when you look at, you can say, okay, 6 classes, that's 42 points. Where do the other 3 points come from? The other 3 points come from the TOK class and the extended essay. So students can get 3 bonus points, what they call bonus points, for their TOK and their EE. So the way to get 3 bonus points is to have 2 A's or an A and a B in those 2 items. If a student gets 1 A and 1 B, they can get 3 bonus points. If they get 2 B's, they only get 2 bonus points, and it drops from there. Okay. Other issues, if a student, let's say in a subject, did not turn in the internal assessment, they could pass the exams, but they'll still fail the class because they didn't do the research project. Same with if they don't complete their CAS requirements, they don't turn in an extended essay, they will not get the diploma. Okay. So going back, the important thing here, this is why universities like this program, because it's so challenging. Okay, it's so challenging because the A levels, the AP capstone, they're easy by comparison because of the workload, not necessarily the content challenge, but the workload. So I met an admissions officer about 5 years ago from Cambridge, and she said, we absolutely love IB diploma students. They're the best because they come in and they can handle the coursework. You never see an IB diploma student fail out or struggle because they have the time management skills. They develop them in order to get it done. So realistically, but the other thing she said was, and this is where the content comes in, she said 42 to get in the door. But then we rank the students 3 higher levels against the 3 A levels of British students. So basically, if you want to go to Cambridge, not only do you have to have a 42 to get considered, but you better have 3 sevens in your 3 higher levels. Because they're still going to rank based on the content. So even a student who takes the A levels, they score perfect, they're going to take them before they take a diploma student who got a 7 and 2 6s. Because in the end, the content is what's counting for those very top universities. Okay. But that said, they love IB diploma students. Most top universities do. But again, it comes down to what's the student's work ethic, okay, over the 2 years. And so I'll tell you right now, I tell parents, when your kid enters the diploma, don't go on holiday for 2 years. Don't take them on holiday because they don't do any work on a holiday. So in between year 1 and year 2, you've got 6-8 weeks off from school and they're not studying. That is a devastating fallback on their progress because they should have spent that 7 to 8 weeks studying every day to go into the next year. Because the next year, see, you have to figure 250 hours for an HL. Most of those hours have to be covered in 3 semesters. Because you come back in January, very quickly, all the research reports have to be done and turned in. And then we start revising, we start testing and practicing in class. We do mock exams usually in February. Guess what? By the middle of March, middle of April, they're starting their exams. Exams are now starting around April 22 to 24 every year. So they're actually starting earlier. So it's important that we, let you know that your kids shouldn't be going on holiday during those 2 years. It just will bring them down. And teachers cannot slow down. Teachers cannot slow down the content for students who didn't study over the holidays. Okay, because
We can
teachers,
go on holiday.
you can go on holiday.
Good.
And as long as you trust that your kid's going to sit and study while you're gone, that's great. But what basically students, I've had students who are really intelligent and they don't study. Generally, the highest they can get is maybe around a 36, 37. They're not going to hit 40 if they're not studying. The 40s are only reachable by those students who are well grounded when they walk in and they're studying all the time.
Sorry, so what's the goal of it? To get their first burnout until they're 17? Get to Cambridge.
Yeah, to get it, but yeah.
So the second burnout is 2 years.
And they're no, it's a challenging program. Now, invariably, all students, when they come back and visit school from university, are like, university's easy. Their first year at least is easy. Yes.
Yeah, Kenneth, thanks so much. I just wanted to add to this because I think your Cambridge example is great, but other top universities, like we were talking the other day, to get your foot in the door, for example, at University of Toronto, what was the IB score again?
28.
So it shows some of the value of the IB. So that's just to get in the door. It doesn't mean you're getting admission, but it's a far distance.
It means you qualify to get into the university. Yeah. Certain departments will have their own requirements. So like if you want to go into engineering, 28 is not going to get you in, but you can get into the University of Toronto with a 28. And that's when considering the minimum score is 24. University of Toronto recognizes that, okay, at a 28, you are definitely college ready, just maybe not ready for certain departments. Yeah.
Ken, point of clarification, a
Yes,
minute ago, you said if a student failed to turn in something, they don't get the diploma. They could still get they still
Yes.
get their high school diploma.
Yes.
They're just not getting the IB diploma.
Yeah.
After 6 months. So, yeah. Now the thing with it, so if a student fails an exam or a student says, well, I got a 5 and I want to get a 7, they can take the exam, but it's only in 6-month intervals. So if they take our exams in April, May, the next opportunity will be November to take exams. And then they'll sit the exams just like they did before. It'll be exam procedures. Now, in that case, normally what happens is the students will have to find tutors or they'll arrange with the school to get extra tuition to prepare. Now, if the reason they didn't get the passing grade is because they didn't do one of the submitted assignments, like an internal assessment or the extended essay, that they have to do under supervision of someone in the school. If they're only going to retake an exam paper, they don't have to have any real contact or dealings with the school. They just use the school to register, they show up and take the exam. But if they didn't do a written piece of work, they have to go through the school to do that because the school and the teachers verify that that work was their own. So if a student doesn't complete an internal assessment, the extended essay, the TOK essay, then they're going to have to work with the school for another 6 months to redo it. Yeah, so it doesn't happen very often that a student doesn't turn in something, because we don't let that happen. Okay. But it's not uncommon for students to resit exams. My first school, we had a student who came from another city, came down to take his exams. He had already scored a 43 and he wanted his other 2 marks. So he came down and sat two subjects. He sat the exams again and he got his 2 points. But it means he delayed going off to university by a year. So, yeah, well, he was studying, at least for the first 6 months anyway. Then after that, he could relapse. Yeah. Oh,
One thing parents are gonna have to consider very quickly, especially if you've got a student like in the 9th grade. Okay. We are gonna have to know before this year is close to over, whether they plan to go into the IB program, whether they plan to go into the DP program, the AP program. Because we plan to offer AP courses for 10th graders next year, if anyone signs up for it. If not, we don't do it. I've got professors here right now that have already qualified to teach the AP courses, which is you've got to go through the college board. You have to be approved. Your curriculum has to be approved. A lot of things have to happen. And we've done that on a couple of courses. But if we've got students that really are serious about it, then we've got to have a couple more teachers get approved. And it's a lot of work on their part.
and the issue with the teachers in the AP program is they have to be qualified every single year. So it's a paperwork, documentation, application for every teacher, every subject, every year.
Okay.
Teachers have to be reapproved by the college board in the United States. So it's not they get approved once and they're good for the next 20 years. They have to get approved every year for the college board. So that's why I'm saying we need to know kind of ahead of time what subjects students are wanting for the AP program, so that we can be prepared for that.
Kenneth,
Yeah.
they're telling me that there's people with questions online.
Oh, okay. Okay. All right. So I guess sit down and we're
If you have time to answer the questions, you can do.
yeah. Okay. Oh, you're gonna ask her to give the question out?
Yeah.
Okay. Can mic? Maybe it's turned off on her side.
Yeah, it's on her side. So
Paula, your microphone's turned off.
Okay, hi. I wasn't sure if it was me. Yeah, I have a question.
Okay, did you have a question?
Yes, about how the school intends to help.
We can't hear you.
You still can't hear me. Okay. Okay, move on
Yeah.
from me. I can't hear you. You can't hear me.
But
Yeah,
well,
go ahead.
while we're waiting for this, are there questions from our in-house audience? Yep, sure. It would be on a case-by-case scenario. So for example, if a student applies to universities in America, their AP transcripts will go to the university in addition to their normal transcripts. So the university will now put them in a different pile to consider. The same will be true in England and Europe. A student with AP credits will normally not apply through the normal system. And they'll be applying through, I don't want to say a side door, but a different front door. So they're considered separately from all the other applicants. What I would say is, what you're suggesting is a student takes some classes in year 10, right? And they're going to America. If they're going to America, then I think that it's reasonable to do that. One, because if you take AP classes in year 10, they're probably helping to prepare for the diploma classes. They're showing a higher level of rigor and challenge earlier. So if they do well, they're going to get the credits. The problem there's a difference between the British system, the European system, compared to the American system or the North American, Canada, America. In Canada, America, most of the universities run on a 4-year bachelor's degree. But when you look at Australia, England, and most of Europe, they're 3-year degrees. So they are not, the European and the British universities are not going to give credit for either AP or IB because the education systems are they're off by 1 year. And usually in Europe and in Britain, they have an extra year of pre-university. So they typically graduate 1 year older than American kids. So the pre-university student in England or Europe will be finishing around the time that they're turning 19. And then they're going to university. In America, they're finishing when they're turning 18. And so their first year in university is essentially the same as the European British final year. So European universities and British universities have no need to accept the IB courses for credit. That only really works in the North American system, where the universities are 4 years for a bachelor's degree.
Math courses you were mentioning before. There are 2 math courses, but both can be taken at either standard level and higher level.
They both have standard level and higher level options, yeah. So the reason for the student to choose higher level could have multiple reasons, multiple motivations. Let's say the applications, if they're taking applications and they take the higher level, maybe it's because they're not strong in other subjects. So they choose the higher level of applications because they need 3 and they're not strong in languages and they don't, so they know that their languages are not going to be high scoring if they take a HL, so they take SL. So they'll take that math applications at HL because they can do it. Students will take the analysis HL because they have a specific degree they want to go to or a specific university they want to go to.
That requires that.
That requires, yeah. So for example, the top universities in Europe tend to want analysis. They don't want applications. But they're not too worried if it's standard level. However, if it's an engineering department or a math department or a chemistry department or medical school, they want the higher level analysis. Yeah. So
they can switch from high level to standard level, not in.
Yeah, students can drop if as long as they have 3 HLs, they could drop math HL to SL if they want. So they could start out in math analysis HL, and then sometime during the first year, they might drop down to SL to make their workload easier. As long as they still have 3 other subjects that they can do at the HL level. So, for example, in the social sciences, the business, the global politics, the environmental science, we're not offering psychology, but psychology, these courses often can be taught and the students don't have to worry until the end of year 1 whether they're going to do HL or SL. So I could plan to take higher level analysis, and then during year 1, I'm like, oh, I'm not going to do it. I want SL, and I'm going to bump my business, and I'm going to do business HL. That's possible. Because in those subjects, the internal assessment is the same for both HL and SL. The only difference is that the HL requires more content, but the research project's the same type of research project. So there's not a real difficulty in terms of switching from SL to HL. But in subjects like science and math, going from SL to HL is not possible because the students will have the content switches so severely, so quickly. Even economics is the same. economics within about 8 weeks. The curriculum is diverged enough. The HL students have so much more to do that SL students wouldn't be able to catch up if they tried to change. So, but these are things that can be further discussed when students are expressing, okay, what do they want to take? We're able to advise. You had multiple questions. So what are your other questions?
Oh, the 2 mark courses, it's something that we know, and what you are saying it's happening because the analysis is very strong in output. But the other one, it's really strong in probabilities. So somebody is thinking about risk management, I would say probabilities are more important than the.
Oh, definitely. The applications is more applicable to social sciences. However, you will still find schools like Erasmus, they want analysis because they want it as a kind of a filter, because they only want students who are very highly accomplished in math because their program is very data analysis oriented. And they say, probability math is not good enough. And that's just the reality of some universities.
I have one last question.
Yeah.
You said, for example, if somebody takes, let's say, the mathematics, but it's hard coming. So, and then you said the diploma is over. Does this mean that you can take mathematics each month? Does this mean that you can change to something else?
If the student's failing math analysis, we would make them start all over again. So it would be 2 more years.
2 more years with everything in there.
Well, if the student completed everything else and wanted to take math analysis, I believe that's possible, but they'd have to start the course over again. So there would be 2 more years before they would complete the IB diploma. So they would be finishing at the age of 20 or 21.
So they shouldn't fail.
No. No.
So stay with the moment that will go through this.
Yeah. Okay. I've got some questions that are online. So can we? Okay. So
No, it should come from.
could they type in the questions?
Yes.
Okay. So if we go to chat,
Yes.
if you have questions, could you please put them in the chat, because nobody's coming through on audio.
Hey, can we
Chat is
can you hear us?
turned off. Chat is turned
Hello?
off for the meeting. If anybody can hear me.
Chat's turned off. So can do I turn it?
Yeah.
You cannot hear.
Hello. I think they cannot hear us. Chat.
But other people can hear Paula when she was in the question.
But we can't.
Other people can.
Can he hear? No.
No.
No, I can just close it.
Hello, can you hear me
Okay.
over
Is
there?
there a way to turn the chat on?
We can hear you.
You can hear somebody on your phone? Their
Okay,
question?
let's do it now.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yes.
come on, bring your chair up here. Wait a minute, who's speaking? Who's speaking?
You can say something.
Hello.
Yes?
Can we ask a question, please?
Okay. Go ahead.
How about the sciences? Is there any HL and lower level and higher level for the sciences, like biology, chemistry, and physics?
Lots of feedback. Yeah, yes. There, higher level and standard levels available for virtually all classes, with a few exceptions. Because like literature, if it's done as a self-study course, it's only available as SL. If it's done in class, then literature is available at HL. Environmental science used to be SL only, it's now HL as well. But all the normal sciences, the physical sciences are HL and SL.
Can I ask a question about the maybe in the second year of the diploma when students are starting to consider applications for university? Would it be, is there a kind of assistance with that, with helping them students go through the application process? If they are doing AP, what that looks like in Europe as opposed to America, if they want to apply for a European university, they're just, yeah, I don't know. Is
Okay,
there
so
any assistance that they can have with filling out application forms, finding universities, appropriate universities, with the differing levels of AP, the other AP program and the IB? Yeah, it's and also just during the course. Yeah. Well, that question first.
Okay, so the answer to your question is we have 2 accredited college counselors on staff currently. So we both have experience advising students and supporting them in terms of their university applications. But I would say right away, the first thing that parents need to do is decide where you can afford to send your kids to school. So you need to decide which country or countries you can afford, and then maybe even consider which cities you would prefer your student to consider. So for example, in Australia, Melbourne has 7 universities. Sydney has maybe 6 or 7 universities. So, you choose a country and you choose a city, there's going to be multiple universities available. If you look at England, I mean, do you want to be in London or do you want to be in a smaller town? Do you want to be in Loughborough? Do you want to be in Exeter? Do you want to be in Manchester, or you want to be out in the boonies in a small town? There's lots of options. So, and of course, London's more expensive. If you're in one of the outlying areas, it's going to be much cheaper lifestyle wise. So I think that it's important that parents think about which countries first, then maybe think about the city and the cost of living, and then choose universities there. A lot of jobs today, students either become innovators and entrepreneurs, or they're going to go on to graduate school. And in graduate school, once you go to graduate school, nobody cares where you went to undergraduate. So if anything, if you know that your student is going to probably have to go on to graduate school, then where they go to undergraduate is not so important. I would look at the budget and say, get the best education you can at the cheapest amount, and then you're saving your money for the graduate school. And you tell your student they've got to do really well wherever they are so that they can get into a good brand graduate school. And then you've saved money for that. That would be my recommendation, to think about. So think about the country, think about, is there graduate school in the future? Because universities typically don't have scholarships for master's degrees. They have funding for PhDs, but they don't have funding for master's degrees. So that's still fee paying. So if a student is going to go into the arts, then they may not need to consider graduate school. So yes, you want them to go to the best arts school that they can, or best design school. So then you're going to put more money out for the first degree because it's their last one. But if a student is studying anything where to go further in their career, they need a graduate degree, then that's the end point that you want to consider. What's the name of the school? So, the first degree where it is not as important. Unless they know it's definitely the last degree that they're gonna get.
Yeah, I just wanted to add on, we also started this year, we launched a university preparedness program. Right now it's for 10s, 11s, 12s, but probably next year it'll probably just be for the 11s and 12s, but we'll see what student interest is in that as well. So it's internships, resumes, how to apply, how to look at university, things to consider, fits, scholarships, all these kinds of things. And then also hands-on help with reviewing documents and preparing them as well.
Yeah, that's the other thing. I would recommend to parents that you focus on one country, because one country has a typical common type application. And so, for example, in England, the essays that students write, very different from the type of essays that are expected in America. So if your student is applying to a couple of universities in England and then also a couple of universities in America, they're doing double the work in terms of essays, preparing. And understand that the application time for preparing applications is first semester, second year. It is the busiest semester because they're having to get 6 internal assessments done, get their extended essay done, get their TOK essay done, and they're studying all their extra content for all their the HL subjects. It's the heaviest semester in terms of learning and production. And that's when they have to start working on their applications to university. So if a student is wanting to apply to 15 universities across 3 different countries, you and the teachers will be ripping their hair out. So it's better that you direct your students to saying it's Europe, or it's the UK, or it's Australia, and you focus. And you're choosing those countries for a variety of reasons. You're choosing Europe because it's very inexpensive education if you're a EU citizen. You're choosing the UK because you're a UK family and you want the lower tuition rate. Or you want Australia because your child wants to study marine biology at James Cook University, which James Cook University sits on the Great Barrier Reef. And while nobody's ever heard of James Cook, if you are in marine biology, you know James Cook. So that's, you're choosing countries first, I think, and then you're choosing the university options in that area.
Yeah, thanks for the advice. Thank you.
Yeah.
Just additional to this one,
Uh-huh.
if there not because there are specifics for universities,
Mhm.
what subjects you need to take, and when it's another thing, isn't 11 and 12 grade a bit late? So it's
Well, that's,
children,
and so students,
they be doing the 10th and 10th grade for us.
so it's one of the good things about the IB diplomas, the spread of classes. So they're going to be able to qualify for many departments, unless they want to go into medicine or they want to go into engineering. Then medicine, it has to be biology and chemistry. They want to go into engineering, it has to be chemistry and physics. So there are, it has to be. Because universities will say, if you don't have higher level physics, we're not taking you into engineering. So there is an expectation and a need that students kind of know which area they want to go into before they start the IB diploma. Because they're not, once they start, they're not going to be able to change classes, change subjects like.
So that is supported, is pretty recorded.
Well, certainly, like the college prep program, there's this discussion of where is your life going? What do you want to study? Now, if students change their mind, and I've seen this happen, students change and say, I don't want to go into engineering, I want to go to medical school. then they end up having to find another way to study that biology later to get to fulfill the requirement of the university.
Actually, what I had in mind was not actually their wishes, but what you as qualified persons, professors that, kind of can see and evaluate whether the student is appropriate for this or whatever, has the potential to be. Of course, that doesn't mean that the student will go to that places, but at least you could recommend
Well,
or planning to do some of that.
And so what I'll say is that in evaluating students, I look at two things. I look at the quality of their essay writing, and I look at where their math is. So if their math is very good, then they're probably going to do well in chemistry. So then they can go almost in any direction science-wise. If their essay writing is not so good, they're probably better off trying to get into the sciences. If their essay writing is good, then anything in the humanities and social sciences is possible. Okay. So really, in the end, it does come down to how good is their language skill and how good is their math skill in terms of what their options are. So it's not a difficult way it's not difficult in terms of advising them. If they're very good in math, then they're going to be able to go anywhere they want in science, the math-based areas. If they're not strong in math, then going into those areas is probably not recommended because they're going to get to university and they're going to be in a department with lots of math whizzes. And that's kind of the reality. Unless they want to take a year to improve their math so that they're actually ready when they go into the university, that they can compete with the other students who are good at math. But by the same token, when you're on the social sciences side, if a student is not good at essay writing, they're probably also not very good at reading. Because writing skill comes from reading. And if students, that's reality. If a student is not a reader, the quality and depth of their writing is not very high. So they're not going to be able to write at a high level when it comes to university expectations. And I've taught at the university level some years ago. And we have another university professor here. And so we can both tell you that essay writing is a very important skill, but it starts with reading ability and knowing the vocabulary, knowing the concepts, walking in, and then being able to then comprehend the higher level concepts and readings that are given. So that's one of the reasons why the IB diploma, the AP capstone course are so valuable, or the A levels are so valuable because they're challenging the students. But I can tell you, if a student's not good at essays and they have to sit down and write 5 hours essay for business. So
I've missed something.
Yeah.
My question is, in a school that promotes the use of iPads and laptops to do all your work, how do you bring together they must read and write, and these two just simply don't gel for me?
So the first thing is that just in the future, the IB will be going to digital exams. So that's coming. So then the digital skills will become more important in terms of typing. One of the very last subjects that will be digitized is Chinese. But probably by 2028, the IB will go all digital, and then Chinese will be integrated into digital slightly later because of the typing skill. But in terms of writing skill, right now it's pen and paper, but soon it will be digital. So it's still the an analytical skill to compose an essay that's important. Reading can be paper, can be digital, can be Kindles, but reading is reading. It's still reading something, reading to understand the content, to think about it, to be able to analyze it. So whether it's digital or paper is not going to make a difference. If anything, digital with tools that will help a student to analyze text and show them what analysis is. Chat GPT. Using Chat GPT to compose an essay is not ethical, but that would be turned in as a piece of work. But using something like AI to help me to understand something is not wrong. And so, even right now, in my grade 6, 7, and 8, I'm telling students, I'm having them starting to look at science articles, research journal articles. I'm saying, okay, you don't understand the abstract, that's fine. Copy, paste, put in ChatGPT and say, please summarize this for me at a grade 7 level. And then also say, give me a vocabulary list that I need to know to understand this. So the AI is something that can actually assist students, but the AI itself can't be used to create the final essay that has to be turned in. So that the students still need to do on their own, even though they might be sitting at a computer and typing it in and then submitting to the IB. So, the funny thing is a lot of universities are considering going back to the blue books. And then all assessment would be based on blue book exams. And then at some point they might go digital. That depends on the technology resources of the college or university. But reading is still reading. That's my view. Yeah. I think that as a person, I like reading paper. I like to have a book in my hands. And there is research out there that says using a real book to read is more efficacious than reading on a book on a digital device. However, the youth are becoming more and more digital. So maybe they will become better at absorbing what they're reading on a digital device. For me, no, I want to have the book. I want to use I have a bunch of highlighters at home and I'm highlighting my books and, but, students today, they're doing everything digital. And so the exams are going that way. Already, you see AP and A levels already going to digital exams. So the IB is going that way too. And for some other reasons besides just the digital, but the cheating that goes on worldwide is becoming unmanageable because of technology. So it's better if there are no exam papers sitting there. Everything can be done digitally. I don't have there's not an answer that's going to solve the dilemma.
Thrilled that when I'm going to call them, it's time for dinner, and I'll copy paste a digital photo of what they would have eaten instead of the real. If you like digital,
Yeah. Or you just give them something blah, but look at the picture and imagine. Are there some more questions from the online gallery? Any more questions from folks here? We'll probably have another meeting like this in January. Okay, so like in 2 months' time. And then to discuss more questions, but that meeting probably I'll ask for parents to submit questions earlier so I can just address questions. There won't be any point in discussing the basics of the program. No point in repeating that, just getting into more details. And then January, so maybe March, we start talking about course selections for students. And so,
Which grade?
well, that March would probably be grade, probably a meeting for grade 10 with the 10 students and parents here, not online, in here, to talk about course selection and how are they doing in math? How are they doing in English? Can they do English A? Do they need to be in English B? Which humanities subjects should they be choosing based on their writing skills? Okay.
See, everything cannot be done digitally.
Well,
I will be here.
yeah, exactly. No, I agree. Yeah, because as it is, I mean, okay, so many parents are online, but a little glitch and they're not able to participate fully. So
What's the information about some programs was presented to our kids already?
they have some information, but I will do this again. Yeah, but we'll probably do it in January for them.
So that's it. I'm sorry, but I missed the one for your speech when you said that it's time, exact time already to choose which education they will follow after school, when it's time. This
Oh.
next 10.
Well, if they're grade 10, then come March, they should be thinking, they should already have an idea of what classes they would like to take. Yeah. Because come March, we're gonna already be working, we've already created a timetable for the lower grades. And we're gonna need to then create a timetable for the diploma years. So after March, if they want to change something, it'll be like, well, we can't, if it fits the timetable that's been created. So let's say a student wants to comes in from somewhere else in July, they say, I'd like to come to your IB program. Fine, what courses do you want? Nope, that doesn't fit what we have. This is the schedule, this is the possibility we can give you. Because 10 students, 10 different schedules, there's at least 9 variables per student that have to fit into a schedule that's of a school from, say, grade 3 to grade 12. The variables are so great that we're not going to be able to change at once the schedule's made. We won't be able to change it for one student. So they'll have to take what's possible once the schedule's being created. Because the schedule, because of limit of classrooms, limit of teachers, subjects, and every class will have 5 hours, 5 periods a week. So by March, they really need to go ahead and make that decision what they want to take. 10th grade, yeah, for
1 year. Understanding.
what I would say is the most important thing is really just, do they want to go into the social sciences? Do they want to go into business, finance, or do they want to, or literature or psychology, or because a lot of these areas don't have specific requirements from high school, secondary. But if they want to go into sciences, then the requirements are going to be much stricter.
Choose between AP or IB, we choose it to the end of this year.
Well, we would say still, even in March, we need to know what subjects students would be interested in the AP, because then we have to make sure the teachers get approved to teach We need, yeah, we need, because we have to do that every year. IB is different. Once the teachers had the training, they're good for like 7 years. But the College Board requires the teachers are approved every single year. I'm not sure, but teachers have to put in their applications every year to be approved to teach a subject. So even if Dr. Hassan's been teaching calculus for 5 years, year 6, he still has to put in an application. That's the way the College Board works. So that's why we need to kind of know. So we basically need to know at the same time, because also we need to create the schedule. Because if we don't have all the students want to take analysis or applications in the IB system, and there's only one student who wants to take calculus, then we may not be able to do it. And the problem is the diploma classes, the AP classes and the IB classes don't mix. Can't mix because the curriculums are different. Typically 30% of the curriculum in any given subject will be different.
And of course, the tests are different.
And the tests are very different. You look at psychology in the IB, it's 5 hours of essay writing. In the AP, most of it's multiple choice with a short essay at the end. And AP psychology teaches about Sigmund Freud, Carl Jung. Freud doesn't exist in the IB psychology at all. They don't make mention of him once. And Carl Jung is not mentioned. So, the approach is very different. In AP, it's more broad and historical in psychology, but in IB, the IB would actually like it if psychology was considered a science. That's what their aim is. They're trying to be a science. So it's very scientific oriented in IB psychology. Yes.
I have a question. Do I understand correctly that it's possible for a student to choose, for example, one math, one biology, one chemistry, and then not have any English at all?
No English.
No English, yeah.
No, for an American high school diploma, they still have to have 4 years. For IB. No, they have to have 2 languages.
But they can choose, I don't know, Slovenian.
Oh, but they have to have a language A and they have to have a language B. So we could have a Russian A and Spanish B. That's possible. No, but my point is they have to have a language A, they have to have a language B, and then all the other classes, but it doesn't have to be English, no. But all of these other classes are offered only in English.
No, but
Yeah. Yeah. So yes, you do have students who take all of their classes in English, all their other classes, but they're taking a language A and then they're taking a language B that are not English. That's possible.
Right, and say in English, start English literature, and you can.
The problem is they could get the IB diploma, but they can't get the American high school diploma. So yeah, some limitations. So there's. So we would say there's a risk. Okay, that's why we're offering English B. Okay, now there are other languages that are possible, but they're in what's called a self-study mode. School supported, but self-study, and it's literature, and it's university level literature. So someone, if they wanted, like tomorrow, somebody comes in to our school and says, I want to do the IB next year, and I want to do French A. The option is French literature A.
A in all literature, so it's also Russian literature.
The reason I didn't say that is because Russian is available in language and literature. So when we teach that in class, it will be probably language and literature. So it's not only literature. Okay, but any language that would be studied independently only offered as literature. No.
But Slovene is only offered.
And Slovene's only literature at this point.
Offered as an A language.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
if who would like to have a Slovene, who would like to have Slovene, they need to choose Slovene A and then English B.
Or they could do English A.
But we can have both ways.
They could have both A's, and if they had two A's, they would get what's called a bilingual diploma.
But having both A's, it means because the language could be language and position, isn't it?
Mhm.
So it's not that much about literature, it's about.
Less literature. There'll be a little bit, but it's more about the capacity to use language. But it's still high level. Because
If they take the language A, while if they have two language A's, it means that they have to give it two types of literature.
well, if they're taking language A, let's say they're taking English A, language and literature, it's a mix. Some literature, some contemporary skills or useful skills. But even B is still at a high level. So language B, by the end of the course, they should be, by European standards, be a B1 or a B2, preferably B2 should be where they're aiming. SL, HL, they should be B2 to C1. C1 is near native. So B is still quite challenging. Yeah, so there's no, the language that if they're studying a second language, they actually have to be learning with intent to become fluent. So the reality is, I mean, when you're at a B1, you should be able to go to that country and totally function independently. Reading, writing, speaking, listening. B1 is you're functional. Because a B1 English student should be able to go to an English speaking university and function. That's a B1. You like B2 going to university, but B1s should be able to go to university in some departments like sciences. You need to be a B1, but B1 would be sufficient in science departments. So, but language is, when it comes to the IB, that's the priority, is languages. The IB expects every student to essentially be bilingual. They should be able to go into the country, their second language, and be able to independently get around and have decent conversations and take care of themselves. That's the expectation. Because you have to realize the history of the IB. The IB was basically starting out, it was only offered primarily in schools of the old international schools back in the 60s. And so a student would go to France and be in an international school. They walk out of school, they are surrounded by French. So by the time they finish, they should be fluent in French. That's the historical expectation of the IB, is that students in an international school, they should be able to speak not only their mother tongue, but they should be able to speak and be fluent in the local language. That's the historical emphasis of the IB. And so that it's still the priority. Even you go into the MYP, language is the focal point. Everything has to surround language. And it's part of the global mindedness, the international mindedness. If you can't speak another language, then how can you be tolerant and accepting and understanding of other cultures if you can't speak their language? If you don't speak any other language, then you really don't understand how other countries can be different. That's kind of the mentality in the IB.
Other some syllabus with these courses. So one of the literature is the ones, and one of the personal.
They have a literature list. They have an approved literature list. Yeah.
From my point of view, I hear was not allowed to be, the.
But you know who chooses the literature list? You know who chooses the literature lists?
No.
University literature professors.
That is supposed to be no reports.
Can we see those lists?
We can get them. We can get them. They're not readily available, but I can get them. But you have to tell me which language you're.
English.
Yeah.
But if we are doing German, we are doing the languages, so we don't have the problem of literature.
Also, German is not going to be good. German is not going.
Well, not this year.
No, next year.
Yeah, could be next year. Depends on how many German students want to take German. Yeah. So the thing is, if what?
Follow-up question.
I'm gonna try speaking again. Can you hear me?
We can hear you now. We can hear you now.
Great.
Go ahead.
Okay, my question, I think some parents are properly freaking out right now. I'll just say that up front because our NYP students are very unprepared for this type of rigor. And my question is what plans the school has to up-level the NYP program so that when the children are ready to enter DP, they have the possibility to succeed with, okay, sufficient work ethic and understanding from the family of what type of effort is required. But as it's been presented right now, what is being offered in NYP is simply not preparing them to be at that level. Let's say if we're talking about language, foreign language fluency, they're not getting there. The math isn't getting there. The sciences aren't getting there. So what are we going to do as a school so that our children can naturally progress into a successful diploma program rather than creating a stressful moment when it's going to be a lot of sense of failure that they're not prepared, but we as a school have put them in that place.
Well, okay, so the first thing is that any school that decides they want to bring in the IB diploma goes through this process. There are very few schools that bring in the IB and the students are always ready. It's very rare for a school to be able to make that transition easily. It's certainly been something that we've been discussing since August, what things we need to do to change the ethos of the school and improve and tighten up the curriculum so that our students are prepared. So, for example, things that are happening for next year, all the languages are going to have, at least through grade 9, down to grade 9, and then probably into grade 8, we'll have 5 hours a week language instead of anything less. The math, at least right now for next year, the math starting in grade 9 will be split into 2 levels, which is actually very common in America. In America, it's very common that in grade 9, there's pre-algebra and there's algebra already being offered 2 levels in grade 9. So we're going to be doing this, but it's partially possible because we brought in 2 teachers who can handle that difference and handle the DP curriculum downwards. It's possible that in another year after that, we may even be looking at splitting math in grade 8, depending on abilities. And the reason for this is when you split a math in a grade level, you're actually reducing the number of students per teacher. So you're lowering the student-teacher ratio, which means that the teachers are able to be more focused on the student needs in a particular group. And so actually could be more accelerated in their learning. When you have a large group and a large spread of ability in math or language, what happens is the students at the very top are not challenged and the students who are at the very bottom are struggling because they're not getting enough attention. So when you split a class and you say, okay, here's the kids who are able to handle accelerated subject, and here are the kids who are struggling, when you split the class into smaller groups, teachers can be more focused on the individual, and so therefore the individuals are going to do better, and so be more prepared. So certainly in languages, we're looking at increasing the number of hours. We're looking at splitting math so that we can have more targeted attention to students and their ability level at that time. We're going to implement English B all the way through. So that means that students who are not native speakers are not going to be focused on literature. They're going to be focused on English skills. But that means that the kids who are native speakers, they're in English A, they're going to be focused on literature because that's what's going to become important to them as they move on and move towards the diploma. So that will increase the opportunities in the preparation of the students. So math and English both are going to be separate to help the students, and then we're going to have more mother tongue languages, 5 hours a week, so that the students can maintain their mother tongue from when they get here. But it'll be those classes will be mostly literature based, because we're not going to be able to teach Russian science and Russian math and Russian history in Russian. So because they're not taking those classes in Russian. We don't, it's not like we have a bilingual science program or a bilingual math program. So the course itself, the Russian course, will be mostly based on developing skills, writing skills, reading skills, and analysis based on Russian literature. Same thing in Slovene. Yeah. So that said, the other thing to understand about the language is that people who write the language exams, especially in mother tongue countries like Russian, it's Russian professors who are writing the exams. No. But they're also examiners. They're writing the tests, and then they're examiners. Okay. So the IB, because the IB wants these courses to be university level, a lot of the work is done by university professors. They want university professors to be examiners because they want that the challenge of the course is university level.
Could I just follow up to conclude on this? I really appreciate your answer. I want to stress that I think as parents, what we want to see is support for all of our students as they're younger, from MYP, from 6th grade, going through 10th. We have 5 years to prepare them in order to succeed. And we want to see that as a real possibility rather than entering into 11th grade with, hey, you don't have options. So that just as a conclusion on that, I think it's something for the school to really consider with seriousness. There was something else at the MYP level.
Can I say something else? There was something else. Of course. With year 9 and 10, we are looking at increasing the amount of testing that we're doing. So that's going to enforce another level of rigor in there. So even though it's at the moment, year 9 and 10 are MYP, it's also an American high school 9 and 10. And so that's why we're looking at every class from 9 upwards will have 5 hours or 5 periods a week, because we need to meet not only Slovene expectations for Slovenian, which is essentially 5 hours a week, but we also need to meet American accreditation standards, which is nearly 5 hours a week. But in order to increase the rigor, we're going to increase the amount of actual testing. So students can be expected in the coming years, they're going to have midterm grades as well as semester grades, and they're going to have end of year exams starting in year 9. Now we can't, the thing is, this is all in our development of a school that can prepare students for the IB diploma, but it's not something that we can do like literally in a 6-month period. But these are things that are these are changes that are going to be coming over time.
Not over time, you need to choose for the end of this year.
Well, the choice is
So it's.
well, I think the first decision is where's your child going to go to school? Are they going to go to a European school or are they going to an American school? That would be the first thing. Because if they're going to go to an American university, then taking AP classes is essentially just as good as taking IB classes. Because I already showed you all the AP classes that we could offer, all offer university credit. And some parents weren't clear about the seminar and the research classes, which have only been out there for 10 years. But those both get 6 credits of university credit. So that's the equivalent of one course for a whole year in a university in America or 2 semester-long classes. So, one class in the AP program here is actually worth 2 classes in the university level. So, yeah, but I think, well, it's just simply, if your child wants to go to an American,
That for US future education, it's both acceptable IB and AP.
yeah,
There's no big difference. But for other
the difference is in the workload.
for Great Britain or
If it's
universities, so
normally
preferable will be
IB, normally. However, a student can still, with an AP program, can still apply, but they would be applying through a different option than applying where they're going to get ranked with everybody else. So does a student want to apply based on overall strengths? They do other things besides just study. They have other activities in their life. They're a musician, and so they're playing music at a high level, but they want to go study medicine. Universities will, in an application process, not a ranking process, a university will take that into consideration. But if you're saying your child might go to an American university, then I would be also considering the workload.
choose preference.
Okay.
But I'm not sure that now in ninth grade.
Why do you want them to choose in 9th grade?
Capable to understand what they're gonna do in 5 years or in 2 years, yes, probably 11th and 12th grade.
But you have
It's a different age starts.
but you have a lot of
Age of 14.
But in a lot of countries, age of 14 is when students are choosing to go vocational, they're choosing to leave school, they're choosing.
So before that you wanna start already prepared kids from starting from 6th, 7th, and 8th grade. But unfortunately now we're in a situation when school only now can provide the studies. So
Well, if you
now
we're now offering the diploma.
our children are
Hmm.
choosing till the end of the season.
Well, if they're grade 9, they still have another year.
Like the school to help them more, to give them all this information, of course, and even more easily, because even for me, so we can feel difficult to understand the terminology of everything. So I want. I would say school to help them to understand the difference of
Their options. Yeah, well, we will do that in January.
Importance and also it's I would say it's for the values. responsibilities of their choices.
Mm.
Because no, I can tell about myself that the puberty period is also very difficult. Sometimes they don't want to listen to parents. Sometimes. And sometimes that's sorry. Sometimes it's sometimes I manipulate that I can call a teacher, I can ask a teacher to send email to you to tell this that I say same that teachers will tell me. So sometimes, most of the time, it's more important to hear the information about responsibilities and self-understanding and the choices, because now it's the different age already is coming. And
Well, any time a
they
school's
need
gonna make
to,
this change.
like to know from teachers same importance that we say to them.
Mhm.
Not like we are always. Yeah, like this is cool.
We can summarize that the programs are basically mostly about the content, so if you learn some content, you are really better in the content.
What
Why?
you could say that, except that now, so if they're just taking subjects, that's fine. But there are schools like MIT where the admissions director says they like the capstone course because of the research and the seminar classes, because those two classes are teaching kids skills that they're going to literally use in every class through 4 years of education. So they like the content. They're not too worried about. They're worried about those skills that you develop in those particular classes. So yes, you're right in terms of a particular subject. The content is important, like the A levels in England. The content's the focus. But when you look at the capstone, the seminar, and the research, it's very skill and communication based, not specific to content. So the kids who do those two courses are also very well prepared, more so than other kids in terms of readiness for the university. But it's still, when you're looking at AP and you're looking at DP, you are looking at where do you want to go to school, which continent do you want to go to, and looking at the workload. And if a student doesn't want the workload of the IB diploma but still wants to go to Europe, it's possible, but they're just not going to be able to go through the ranking system, because Europe, a lot of the European universities have a ranking system. All the students apply through one website, and the website ranks you. And then according to your ranking, it's the offers that you get from the universities. So if they're not going through the IB, then they have to apply through another process. And so then the universities are looking at the application under different criteria. That's why I say somebody's a musician, somebody who's an accomplished musician is not necessarily going to be an accomplished student in 6, 7 different classes, because they don't have the time, because they're a performer. So the university may consider them under different criteria. And that happens in the United States too. But certainly a lot of universities in the US are now also looking at students through what's called a Common App, which is basically a aggregator of all the scores and just sends the university what are the scores. There's other information there too, but universities will look at the scores first. And certainly in England, what happens is they rank you according to the scores, and then only then will they start looking at, oh, I've got 2 students who have exactly the same scores. Okay, let's go look at their essay note. And which one has a better essay?
Impression to use the IB is that the workload in terms of content is quite heavy.
Mhm.
But the way they are examining the end with essays,
It's harder.
it's harder, so we really need to have it like good thinking skills to the knowledge process before we get to the DP, because if you don't have those in place, then I'm not sure that you're able to grow through, because it's not about only
Yeah.
knowing the content which is paid.
Well, the
Not finding your way.
Yeah, so the good preparation for the IB is content, but it also is the essay writing ability and the math ability. It's those, they still have to have content because you can't, it's difficult to go into, say, chemistry and never have had chemistry before. There has to have been some chemistry ahead of time. Just like you can't go into math analysis if you haven't had basically a year of calculus. If you haven't had that calculus background, you're not going to be able to do math analysis. So this is a challenge for any school that's going to bring in the IB. Is we've got to change the whole school, and it takes time, because getting a student ready for calculus doesn't happen in that year. Oh, we're going to teach calculus now. No, it starts before that. They've already had to have a very strong foundation in algebra. They also need some progression in trigonometry. They have to have had these prerequisites, so it goes down year by year. And so, this is a kind of a dilemma or fact of when a school brings in something like the IB, or somebody brings in for the first time, they're going to bring in the A levels, or first time they're going to bring in the AP courses. There's always a transition period when you have to get the lower grades up to speed. That's the reality.
So is it feasible for my graduates to do well on my diploma, because we've been trying to learn the previous years for all of the subjects.
I think it will be something. It'll be something that we'll see. Certainly in some subjects, 2 years is fine. In some subjects, well, science is, the content starts to become important in grade 9 and 10. Before that, the content is not indicative or predictive of performance in the IB. I would say that year 9 is starting to be a little bit predictive. Year 10 is more predictive, but it's really about the logical skills and reading and calculating that come into play. Physics and chemistry are heavily dependent on math. Biology is dependent more so on language, because it's a language-based subject, vocabulary. Economics is a mix of mathematics and language. We're not offering economics yet. No. Yeah. And if we were to offer economics very soon, it would probably only be at the standard level. To IT? Okay, so IT, there's 2 courses that are common in IT. One is called computer science, and one is design technology. Computer science is actually, you can find it in some schools, but it's actually a fairly rare subject. There's multiple issues with computer science. One is finding a teacher who is actually good enough. They just don't exist, because computer scientists are working in tech, making thousands and hundreds of thousands of euros in tech. So they're not going to become teachers. So it's very hard to find a good tech teacher, a good computer science teacher. It must be somebody who's just the computer nerd and they love to teach and they don't care about money. Otherwise, yeah, because of lifestyle. But usually computer scientists, they want they want a particular lifestyle, so but it's money based. You know, so, but you can find this in any industry, any field. But in computer science, it's hard to find. There's other issues with computer science in that. So the IB will have refresh or adjust and change their curriculum in every subject every 5 years. Every 5 years, they review and they update the curriculum. In computer science, the technology is changing so fast that literally they haven't been able to keep up.
How the design technology,
What?
the design technology,
Okay, design technology is an area which is even smaller than computer science. So it's even harder to find the people who have the qualifications to do it. And then also with design technology, it's often one specialized area. So, and if you get a different teacher, one teacher leaves, then you end up changing to a whole new type of design. So one design might be metalworking, another design might be in wood, another design might be in computer graphics. But every time you change teachers, you end up changing the program. Because the design technology is about the design cycle. There's a design process. The media is different, the medium they use. It's like art. So every time you change teachers, the school has to change their whole design department often. And so a lot of schools just don't bother because it's too costly every 4 years to change the curriculum in design. So it's a very, very small subject. In computer science, again, the thing is that students are learning how to do advanced programming and programming design. And that's very expensive for schools to literally every year they're upgrading their system. A lot of schools just don't do it. They don't have that resource. Not for the number of students who want to do it, because reality is, and I like to talk reality, how many computer geeks do we have? And the reality in computer science is, if a student wasn't a computer geek in middle school, they're not going to be able to do HL computer science. They need to be a geek in early life to be able to access and have the thought process to be able to achieve in computer science HL. It's sort of like music. If you're not a good musician, we're not letting you into the music program because you're not going to do well. For a musician, for somebody to take diploma music, they have to be a true performing musician. Dance, art, a little bit easier. But even in dance, if you're not a performing dancer, you better not take dance HL. SL, you can get a 5. But if you take HL dance, you better be at performing level if you want to score well. That's the reality. Again, because these courses are university level courses. So a student in dance should have the dance skills to go into a dance school. A musician should have the music skills to go into a proper music school like Juilliard in New York. If they don't already have those skills, then they better not take music.
Have music school for you. High school music school. We have music schools.
Yeah.
High school or school be offering the CD.
Well, there are schools. I mean, the thing is that you have to understand. I mean, the IB is traditionally it's always been offered in very expensive schools. So very expensive schools, parents have a lot of money. Their kids have been taking music classes since since they were 4 years old, and they've already got literally 12 years of music experience before they get to the IB diploma.
Music is by music school.
Oh, well, we're not a music school. Yeah. But I mean, normally what will happen is, yeah, the kids have been studying music for 12 years before they get to the diploma, so they're already performers. They're already playing in orchestras when they're taking the diploma. Yeah, but yeah, so music in an inclusive school, a non-specialized school, music is always going to be a very small group of students. You know, because musicians, if they really want a musical career, they're going to go to someplace like Amadeus International School, Vienna, where the whole school is based on music. And they've added drama and a few other things, but you know, and they're an IB school, but they've only recently done the IB diploma. They were doing the IB career program because it was focused on performance. They weren't worried about the diploma. They're training their students to be performers in art, performers in music, performers in drama. So, you know, those students will go on to those careers. You know, it's very specialized. So, you know, a generalized school can't offer that kind of program because we can't have a faculty of strings teachers, horn teachers, percussion teachers teaching from grade 6 on up. Yeah, so only a true art school can focus the faculty like that. Yeah. So, but there are all of the IB courses are basically determined by university level faculty. And so that's why universities like the IB, because they know if a student has finished the IB diploma, they're already university quality. They're already at university standard. So they're going to come in and that academic transition is easy for them. The hard part will be just getting used to being a single person in a new country, in a new city, with all this freedom that they didn't have previously. So, but that challenge and rigor is what the universities like it, because then you don't have to worry about that student. They don't have to worry about any IB graduate struggling when they get to university, because they've demonstrated over 2 years that they can put in the work and have the discipline to achieve. And yeah, they cope right away. Academically, they have no challenges when they get to university. But that's why the top universities in Europe, they only want to see math analysis, because they know that that student will never have any math issues in their program. And they have the theoretical and analytical skills. The logic system is built in, it's ready. So they know that that's not going to have to develop. It's already there. You know, so yeah.
You said about it, but again, but there are specialists in the school who will talk to the child and the teenager and help him to decide which subjects to take and at what level,
absolutely.
what he's planning to do.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, because
many things to consider. I understand. You have to consider, so it's not too hard, not too easy, and you have to call, but it's not. You don't overload yourself. It's not. An easy task.
That'll be a time in March when basically teachers and students are all sitting down, and then we have personal conferences, and someone will say, well, you know, your essay skills are not at the standard that you can handle English A, HL. English ASL, maybe a 5. But English HL, maybe a 3. Now that's not bad. It's still passing, but it's not helping in terms of college admissions, because in the end, it still getting into college still depends on your overall score. Now the individual subject scores, that's what helps with certain departments. But you know, University of Toronto says 28. You can get in. We'll accept you. then your scores will tell us which department you're ready for. So, yeah. The IB is a shock to the system when it first comes in. Shock to the system, meaning the school, the teachers, the admin, the ownership, the students. Everybody gets a shock when you bring in the IB diploma.
So is life in general. So.
Yeah, yeah. Going to your first job is a shock.
All of these other things have changed, but these basics haven't. Where I grew up, your primary school, you had to decide because high schools went in two directions, technical or academical.
Mm.
So at the age of 13, you suddenly were faced with my career path, basically, knowing nothing.
Yeah.
So you end up going to one. Now you start focusing, and then when you finish your high school, now you will need to look at studying further. And you suddenly realize, I went technical, but actually I would prefer. So,
yeah.
You know,
and
not us and not our kids can be assured, and not even with all your assistants, the kids made the right choice now. Because I know I started one direction, I've ended up in a totally different direction. I went technical, and I was in sales, and I'm now in purchasing. Nothing to do with electronical engineering. That's the bottom line.
You're making more money than the engineer, the technician.
I'm a people's person.
Yeah.
I do that all along.
Yeah.
But parents sometimes think dad was an engineer, granddad was an engineer. You're going in a technical direction.
So the funny thing is,
sometimes I agree, parents must advise or assist, but not then, it's kind
push
of
or
tradition.
force.
Keep it in the family.
Yeah.
It's also not good. But at 13, 14, 15 years of age, what is the statistics? How many of them choose right? That they eventually do end up in the right career, in the right university, in the right field? How many?
In Singapore, more than 50% of the workforce are not in the area where they graduated from. Because they followed what their parents told them and pushed them into, and so they did it, and then they get out and they find their own pathway, which is completely different than what they trained for.
Yeah, but now social structure, modern, is more strict to the education now. It's our previous 2 generations before, 3 generations graduates. It wasn't so strict.
Yeah.
Social.
But now the careers are more challenging. So you have to have more skills just to get in.
I think it's important that you look at what's in demand. Everybody suddenly goes for accounting. There's too many accountants in the world.
So then you
don't get a job. So look at the ads. Everybody's looking for
Numbers.
whatever. Yeah, I studied mechanical engineering. So okay, there are 5 things that I'm interested in, and with these 5 things, 3 things there is a shortage of. So my chances are that if I go into one of those 3 directions, not only will I make it because I'm interested in it, but I will also make it because I will actually end up a career in that direction.
Yep. Very true.
Once you want to be marine biologist. When we ask what do you want to be one day? Marine biologist. All Caitlin's friends, all of them, and they're all going to Australia. No, not new graduates. No.
Okay. Okay, no any other questions? We're going to end because we've already gone to 7 o'clock.